In the context of Corpus Christi, the mind who moves towards the realm of the mystery of our faith, the centre of the universe, as it were, the sacred host, and memories return of graces perceived and lived, and also of the possibility that is in a grace which quite often is very gentle and even unheard, but perceived. In particular, one thinks of the grace of vocation. St. Paul VI, one day addressing the clergy, young clergy in particular, had this to say when he was having to deal with a large number of rescripts of laicization. He was trying to make an appeal to their conscience and their memory and even their emotions, and said this: think of the joy you had when you consented to your vocation. Think of the joy of your ordination and first Mass. He just could not understand how such a joy and grace could so quickly evaporate. And so it is well to revisit, either physically or mentally, the graces were in a sense orientated all time. After ordination, I was allowed to return to celebrate first Masses with friends in Wales and here in Ireland, and my first Mass actually in the British Isles was at Greenwich Abbey, and I had known that abbey since school days, and it was Dom Alban, who had been novice master and whom I'd known for a long time, who served it. He was by then an old man. It was in Latin, and he served it with great reverence, and he gave me a word which I've never forgotten since. After we got back to the sacristy, he just whispered, "Don't lose your fervour. Don't lose your fervour." And I remember my last first Mass, as it were, was with Sisters of Perpetual Adoration in Rome, that I was friendly with, and in the sacristy it was written there, "Priest of God, celebrate this Mass as though it were your first Mass, as though it were your last Mass, as though it were your only Mass." And that is the way it should be. And in that context, we are handicapped in the West by the tendency in some countries more than other countries to have a large celebration, a large number of celebrations following each other within a short space of time, and by the same priest. There was a case actually not long ago here in Ireland. Our Vicar General here in Meath became Bishop of Ossory and is now Archbishop of Dublin. But he was looking, when he got to Ossory, at the situation there and seeing what was going on. And he found one timetable of a church that is on the list of celebrations going on in the diocese. He looked at this one parish where there was one priest with more than one church, and he saw Mass in this church at 9 a.m, then in another one by the same priest at 9:30 a.m. And to put it mildly, he wasn't amused. Now think of the quality of celebration that's going to lead to. And it does, over a period, actually then accustom the people to a certain type of celebration. It's the minimalism that by now has become the only norm accepted in some places. And if a priest goes on for more than he's supposed to go on, he's in trouble. People will complain. That's a world apart from the way in which, for instance, either in the charismatic renewal or in the Eastern Orthodox Church, things are approached. One doesn't look there at one's watch. One goes into mode of praise and honour and glory. And it's a very different approach and a far healthier one than this question of keeping one's eye on the watch. And it's also part of our own ancient Catholic tradition. I think of one case in particular, St. Philip Neri. Not long after ordination, I was able to celebrate at his private altar, which is next to the Chiesa Nova which he created. It's in the old oratory, and there he would go, and the altar boy would leave him alone for an hour or two. After a while he would go into ecstasy, and he would not take less than an hour or two, about 2 I think, because he was just with God and the angels, and time didn't enter into it. And at that point I realized time must not enter into it to that degree that it damages the quality of intimacy and of true celebration of heart. We can educate the people and not be led by their minimalistic attitude. There was a case actually reported by Bishop Colum O'Reilly, who had been bishop in the Longford area, and he gave a holy hour in our cathedral some years ago, and in the midst of that time before the Blessed Sacrament he gave us this to understand: people need celebrants of prayer. And he shared this thought after retirement he was helping in parishes here and there, and he saw things as they were, not as they were presented to him as a bishop who would be going on visitation, but as they were on a daily basis in their poverty. So there he got to one place to fill in a gap over the weekend, and this lady whom he knew was there, and he said to her, "Dear, why are you here? It's not your parish at all, it's a long way from your home." And the lady answered, "No, it's not my home, but I come here because in this parish the priest prays the Mass." In other words, she made a sacrifice to get to a place where she was uplifted by the quality of the celebration and the atmosphere that surrounded it. She wasn't into minimalism at all, and not everyone is either, and some are willing to make that sacrifice. In fact, this morning I was amazed to see how many kilometres have been covered by people who came very early in the morning from a long, far distant away to come to a celebration where they could pray quietly with Jesus. These things actually do matter, and we can form people not just by our word but also by the atmosphere that we can let them experience. They need complete education to the sacred. Your actions speak so loudly that I can't hear what your words are saying. So after ordination, my first Mass in Wales was in my own former parish in Cardiff, and that was a very moving experience. It was with the altar of the Blessed Sacrament at the time. Now it's gone back to the middle of the church, but it was moved there for a while, and it was the altar that I was used to for quiet celebrations quite often. And there I was using my spiritual father's chalice, Tom Ronald's Beverno, and it brought back also all the memories of waiting there in prayer in that chapel over the years in school days, listening to what the Lord might be wanting and thinking of the future, and how dreams can become reality. But grace is perceived in prayer and becomes a reality. So I wrote this, amazed at the way that actually it was full circle, and also amazed at the power of God to get through all the obstacles which were not lacking, alas, to ordination. The old familiar parish, St. Mary of the Angels. This is the altar whereon many dreams did linger or long hours. 'Twas here that love was strong, when yet the morrow's coming beams did dawn on waiting dawn. For here did move the might that moved the world. And I recall that oft as morn soft shone and eve did die, I'd hide and huddle well and hear thee call. Good Master, hind this veil where thou didst lie. Yet I thought not that I one day would come again to memory's land, or here would stand to call thee gently back to this our home, made all of things well known, or that this hand would hold the chalice that my father held, here, even here, where ears and old tears welled. Here, even here, Latin Mass in St. Philip Neri's private chapel. Is this the place where ecstasy would be, a little off the ground? Is this where stood on thinnest air one given eyes to see, beyond the veil that shields this flesh and blood? O Philip, is it true that thou wouldst come and linger for a lengthy while at this strange task, ne'er given to angels, but to some, and only some, that bear the mark of bliss? O Lamb of God, here slain upon a word, teach me to wait a while where some have been alone with thee before, where some have heard, and seen what was not seen by common eye. For I have time to stand a little longer on this strangest land.